Hey guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I try to recreate this beautiful dress as seen of Vicky James, and trust me guys, this is not a very easy dress to recreate. But anyways, today's video is going to be the pattern drafting tutorial. In my next video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to go about the sewing and putting everything together until you get a full dress like what I have here. So if you're interested, keep on watching and let's get started. I miss my cocoa butter kisses of your smile. To make this dress, I'm going to be making use of a Mikado silk fabric. I cut 3 yards of this, and while I was making this dress, I realized that this 3 yards was it's not enough because you can see my ruffles are very tiny. And then I went ahead to get a press button made from the fabric that I got, have a matching thread and a zipper as well. So I would advise that you get at least 4 yards of this fabric so that you'll be able to actually get everything you want done. So now we're going to start by drafting out the back pattern. I folded a part of my fabric into two. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure that when you fold your fabric, you have enough extras. So this is my hip measurement divided by 4, and I have all of these as extra. Now this, I'm only going to be cutting out the back for now, all right? So measure your hip measurement divided by 4 and then have at least 10 extra inches on the side to be able to give you your flare. That's when your fabric is in a fold. So once you're through with this, go ahead and draw a straight line across the top of your fabric to serve as the shoulder line. Now from this shoulder line, I'm going to measure down to my waist. For this, I am using 14.5 inches for my waist at the back. Please take note of this. So this is the back pattern, all right, and this is the waist measurement I'm using. So I went ahead to square this out as well. And then from the shoulder again, you're going to measure down to your hip. I'm going to square this across as well, just like you see me doing that. So now we have the shoulder measurement, the waist measurement, and the hip measurement. Now the next measurement is going to be the dress length. So from the shoulder, I'm going to measure down. Now I wanted the full dress length to be 40, but I'm going to be marking around 36.5 here because we are going to have ruffle. This is just for the dress itself before the ruffle, so the ruffle will complete the length. So now that I'm through with this, I've gone ahead to draw straight lines across. Now on the shoulder line here, I'm going to go in by half of my shoulder measurement and then come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. So now I'm just going to draw this slightly into the shoulder line. Next, I'm going to come down from my shoulder slope by 7 inches, which is my armhole depth. You can get this by taking a measurement around your armhole and dividing that into 2. Now, from the shoulder slope, I came down with a straight line and then got the midpoint of that straight line. Now, from this point we drew earlier, I'm going to divide my bust measurement into 4 and make a mark here. And now I can connect a curve from the midpoint I got just now, from the shoulder to the midpoint, and then down to the mark I just got. Now this is just to get my armhole, so whichever way you're able to get yours that you already use is absolutely fine. Now the next thing I want to do is on the waistline here, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4. I added just like ½ inch for my dart at the back. So now I went ahead to connect it to the armhole. Now the next thing I'm going to do is from here, I'm going to go ahead and mark my hip measurement. Now my hip measurement divided by 4 is right here, but for this dress I'm not going to follow the hip line. So from that hip line point that I marked, I came down by extra 3 inches to give me that flare thing going on. So it's like flare from your hip, so it's bigger than your hip, something like that. So from the waist, I connected a flare shape down to meet that hip line and then all the way down to the dress. So now at the length of the dress, you're not going to leave the sharp edge like this, all right? Because it's supposed to look like a flare, I came up by about 3 inches and connected it into the rest of the body so that that side is not looking longer. Remember I told you guys that this was the back pattern. So after drawing out everything, I realized that I did not add zipper allowance to the center back. So I just shifted my pattern a bit by about 2 inches from the center here, all right? So it doesn't alter my pattern. I just need to add extra 2 inches to the center to make it my zipper allowance. So I just shifted my fabric that I folded before. I shifted the fold to give me extra inches as the center to serve as allowance. So I'm just going ahead to iron this out now, all right? And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a straight line across where the initial measurements I took before were from. So just like this. So that way I have added my zipper allowance. So I really hope that you guys will watch the video first before just trying to cut directly on your fabric. I didn't want to start cutting out and redrafting all of these. You can see it's going to actually look funny cleaning it up and all of that. So I extended all the lines into the zipper allowance now, as you can see. So now the next thing we're going to do is to get our neckline. So from the shoulder here, I came in by 2 inches. You can do 1.5 depending on how wide you want the neckline to be. And then from the shoulder at the top, I came down by 6 inches at first, but I thought it might be a bit too high and I decided to just come down by 8 inches for the neck depth. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect a round neckline with this. So the back neckline is a deep round neckline. So the depth of my neckline here is 8 inches, and from the shoulder I came in by 2 inches to get the round neckline. So yeah, this is basically all for the drafting out of this back pattern. I'm going to go ahead now and cut this out. You know, we've not added any stitching allowances to the side, so when you're cutting, do not cut exactly on the lines that we drew, so that you have your allowances for your stitching. So now this is it for the back pattern. I'm going to open up the center here into 2 to give me the 2 sides of the back. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and just pin these 2 pieces together so that they do not move. Now on the waist, I came in by 1/2 inch to prevent the zipper area from bulging, and just squared it up and down nicely like I've done here. So now we're going to leave this aside and draft out the front pattern, but we'll refer to it while we are drafting the front pattern as well. Now for the front, I'm going to be using a pattern paper. This is because the front has 2 different sides and you cannot just cut it the same. So I had to join this pattern paper at several points to be able to get it to be this wide. All right. So, and this pattern paper here is folded into 2. So now once you have gotten your pattern paper joined together and all of that, go ahead and draw out a starting line just like we did on the actual fabric earlier. Next, from that shoulder line, go ahead and measure down to your bust point, shoulder to bust point, and then shoulder to under bust, and then shoulder to waist. Now for my shoulder to waist here in front, remember at the back I used 14.5, right? Now in front I'm going to be using 15.5. That's because there's going to be a side dart in front of this dress. If you notice, if you look closely as well, we're trying to recreate, there was a side dart as well. So because of that side dart, I used 15.5 for the front waist, and there's 14.5 at the back. So the front is 1 inch longer than the back. So by the time we take off that dart, both of them will become the same length. So I'm going ahead to square out the lines. I have my shoulder line, bust line, under bust line, and waistline. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the skirt part because I'll just use the back to do that. So on the shoulder line here, I'm going to go in by my shoulder measurement divided by 2, just like I did before on the back, and then come down by 1 inch and square it into the shoulder line. Then I'm going to come down by my armhole depth and then draw a line across. And from the shoulder slope, draw a line to meet that point. Just everything I'm doing here is what we did on the back pattern. Next, I'm going to get the midpoint of this line and go in from there by 1/2 inch. Then on this line for the armhole, divide your bust measurement by 4 and mark it. And just go ahead and connect everything to give you your armhole. Mark my nipple to nipple measurement from the center. I marked it on the bust line, under bust line, and on the waistline as well. So I'm going to draw this line across, just take it down. I still it below the waistline because I want the dart to go down below the waistline. So now once you achieve with this, on both sides of the waistline here, go out by 1/2 inch and then come down by 5 inches from the waist. So now connect everything together. So from the waist here up, and from the waist here up as well, and then from here to that 5 inches below, and do the same thing here. You have your beautiful dart. Now this dart is only going to be on one side. Now this pattern is quite tricky. The dart is only going to be on one side. So now after doing this on the bust line, I mark my bust measurement divided by 4. And now on the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4 here. And because this dart is only going to be on one side, normally I would have replaced the whole dart, but it's not going to be on the other side. So instead of replacing this whole 1 inch, I'll just replace half of it, which is 1/2 inch. So now, with that being done, go ahead and connect from the armhole all the way down to the waist. Now for that side that I was talking about earlier, from the bust line here, I came down by the 1 inch we added to the front and just square it into the bust point like this. So you can just come out like this to show you that there's going to be a stitch here and all of that, so that you don't make a mistake and just cut this part straight on the fabric, because it will now become shorter. All right, so this area is going to be stitched away and this dart will be stitched away on one side, but the side dart will be on both sides. The waist dart will be only on one side. Now I have said it before that this is quite tricky, so it's something that you have to just pay attention to. So now we are going to bring back our back pattern, because I want to use it to get the flare part, because I want the flare part to be exactly the same as what it is at the back. If I try to do it again in front, it might become longer or something might be a bit different from what I did before on the back, since I did it with my free hand. So what I'm going ahead to do is fold away the zipper allowance area so that I can align the waist of both the front and the back and draw out the new side. So now I'm going to align the waist of my back pattern with the waist on my pattern paper here. All right, so just align it from the center front and just take it to wherever it meets on the side. Remember, we have already added stitching allowances to the side of the dress. Okay, so align from the center and just align everything that you have on the side into this other side. Now the stitching allowances that is already here will just automatically fall into the front pattern. So from the waist, you can see I'm just drawing out the skirt curve and taking it towards the center as well. Now this was a bit wide, that everything was not in frame all the time. So you see this area here, this is the allowance that was added earlier to the back pattern. So I'll just align it and add it to this front as well, as we have not added allowance here. So now when I'm using this front pattern to cut out, I will not need to add any allowance to it because I have already done it here. So yeah, that's all for the drafting out of this pattern. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. So guys, after cutting it out, I am going to now open up this pattern. This is why I told you guys that this front pattern is quite tricky, to be very sincere. So I've opened up this pattern and I'm extending all the lines to the other side that was folded in. So I extended the bust line, the under bust line and the waistline, because the both sides of this dress are not the same. Okay, so you cannot use the same pattern to draft the both sides. So they have to be drafted separately. So this is definitely not a tutorial for beginners, because even I struggled a bit trying to interpret this pattern, but this is usually helpful for learning processes. Now I have an idea of how to go about something like this. So now that I've extended the patterns into this other side, I went ahead and turned over to this other side, and I'm going ahead to mark my nipple to nipple measurement. Now this is for me to get that straight line that is going to be on the side of this dress. So I marked it here as well, nipple to nipple measurement. Just marked it a couple of points on the skirt part and on the upper part as well, just so I can get a straight line coming from the top all the way to the bottom of this dress. All right, so the front pattern is quite tricky. It's not something to rush at all. If you want to actually try to recreate this dress, it's not something you should rush at all. So I've drawn out a straight line all the way from the neckline area down to the bottom of this side. So one side is going to be having a dart, the other side is going to have buttons. All right, so this is quite tricky. So now I'm just going ahead to measure my back shoulder, the neckline area of the back, the shoulder, to replicate exactly what I have there on this side as well. So I marked it here from the shoulder here, and then I'm going to mark it here as well. So now after doing this, we are going to draw out the neckline. Now while this dress is quite tricky, is that even the neckline is not the same on both sides, so you cannot use the same neckline on both sides. So now to get this neckline from the bust line, I'm going to go up by about almost 3 inches. Depends on how open you want this dress to be. So I think I marked 3 inches here, go up by about 3 inches, and now I'm going to connect to get the neckline. So this is not a V neckline, it's not a round. You cannot cut it the same for both sides. So I have connected from here to one side and from here to the other side to give me that deep and small neckline effect going on. All right, so now this is all for the neckline area. I am going to go ahead and cut this out. Now before we go ahead and cut through this line here, we will need to create that sweetheart effect like thing that was going on at the bottom of this dress. Now this is actually very simple to do. You can do it with your free hand basically. So I'm going to come up from the center of this line here by how high I want that slit to be. It's kind of like a slit. So I came up by 6 inches, and from that 6 inches point, I'm just going to create like a curve like this towards this side. You can see I used my free hand and did the same thing to this other side as well. So a curve here and a curve towards this other side. So with that being done, we are done drafting out this pattern. I'm going to go ahead and cut out everything. So while I was cutting, basically, I just tried to have a better, smoother curve. You can see how I'm doing it with my scissors. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this other one as well, just making sure that this curve comes out really smooth. So after that, you can now go ahead and cut through this line that we have at the center to separate the front pieces. Remember, I told you guys that the front pieces will be cut out separately. All right, so these are the two front pieces. Okay, so yeah, this is all for the drafting out of the front and the back pattern. You can see it is quite tricky. So there's going to be a joining here. We are going to stitch down a dot here, on the side here, and on the side here. So you guys will be seeing how all of that would come along. So this is all for the drafting out of the front pattern, and you can see the sweetheart curve at the bottom here. So this is it. And now here we have the back pattern that we drafted out earlier. I can go ahead and remove my pins from the center back now. Now this video is already so long. In the next tutorial, I am going to be showing you guys how to join all of these pieces together and how to go about making it into a dress. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next one.